What's up, you guys? Welcome into the Battleground Podcast, iHeartRadio's official wrestling podcast. It is Starrcast week here on the show, and every day this week we've had special guests. And today we've got a guy that you and I have all seen on your TV, the world famous Mike Chioda. And let me tell you, if there was ever like a Mount Rushmore of referees or Hall of Fame, you're the number one guy on my list to go in there.
I appreciate that, brother, and thank you for having me on your show, man. Yeah, it's an honor to be a part of Starrcast, man. This is huge in near my end of my career. So just being a part of Starrcast and the Ric Flair's match is gonna be huge, man. It's really huge.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at that card, and of course, you've got, SummerSlam in town the weekend as well.
Right.
I've looked at all these message boards, and some people are saying this Ric Flair's last match might, succeed and be a better view than, the other company that's happened in the weekend.
Nah, no doubt. I mean, here's an icon, a legend, an icon. I've worked with him for many years. Respect Ric Flair so much. And it's just, I've been thinking about it in the last few weeks, and I said, geez, I'm ready to about ready to write a book soon. And I'm glad I didn't, because I'd love this to be my last chapter in my career. Who more than do somebody's last match but Ric Flair's, one of the icons and legends in this professional wrestling business, which is phenomenal to be a part of. And I was honored to be asked to do his match as well.
Yeah,
And
so let me ask you that. I mean, how did that come about? Like, did Rick like shoot you a text and be like, "Hey, this is my plan, and I want you to be a part of it"? Or
no, actually, Conrad Thompson texted me. So,
okay.
And I know he's family. So, I mean, it's like he reached out to me, and, I do a podcast for Monday Mailbag with Mike Chioda on Mondays, every other Mondays for Conrad for about 2 years now.
Mhm.
And, he asked me, and I do a lot of stuff for Conrad and everything. So he asked me to do this match, and it was just an honor to be asked. And it was, just a great feeling. And like, wow, I'm like, all right, Rick's going to want to do it one more time. So, and I mean, I follow him on social media. I've seen him about almost, was it 8 months ago or something? We had another Starrcast event, and AdFreeShows and everything. And I flew back with him to Tampa, and man, he's just got more spunk at 73. I'm 55 now, hitting 56 soon. And I'm thinking to myself, am I going to have that fucking, energy in like 18 more years? I'm like every fucking day on the boat, drinking a beer or two, fishing, hanging out. I'm like, I
Yeah.
love him. I love him.
I mean, like you said, you look at these videos and he's out here training and pushing hard, and I'm like, bro, I'm like 33 and I can't do half the stuff that Rick's doing right now. I'm
I
like,
know, man.
and he's about to go out there and have a
It's
tag team
unbelievable.
match, take bumps and everything. I'm like,
Oh, brother, when we're on a plane on a long trip or anywhere in a locker room somewhere, man, if you're in a bad mood or tired or like fucking down, he'd come into that locker room or the plane or whatever and just fucking cheer you right up and make you laugh.
yeah.
It was just so much energy, so much, high, good energy, and just unbelievable, man. He always so good to me for all these years, man.
Definitely, for sure. There's been a couple of events that I've been at where Rick's been in there and he came in. I think the most recent one that I was at, he was back there signing some stuff, and Lawrence Taylor was back there signing stuff. And
Right,
putting those two together,
right.
just sitting there being the fly on the wall, listening to the stories of them two, and Rick
Yeah.
signing things, just like LT, LT. They're just going back and forth,
That's
and Rick
it.
can light up a room, and of course, he's going to light up that room at Municipal
He
Auditorium.
does, man. He sure does. That's the truth. It's always my career doing Ric Flair's last match was going to be, the last chapter of my career in a book,
Mhm.
when I'm going to write my book. 35 years with WWE and 37 years or 30 years in the business at this point. He's definitely going to be the last chapter in my book that I write in, because I know I'm going to put that in there, and it's just going to be awesome to see him perform again. And he's been getting in shape, and he's been working out and stuff, and just God bless him, man. I'm going to be happy for him,
Yeah.
definitely at the end.
It's gonna be an emotional night. I have a feeling because we're gonna be in the building. I
Yeah,
have a feeling I think I'm gonna cry more at this
right.
than I did with him and Sean's match.
Right. See, now I've always said that too, because let me tell you, like, there's always like some questions out there on AdFreeShows on my podcast, and they ask me like, "Hey, Mike, what was like one match or three matches that you wish you could have done that you
Yeah.
never did?" And I'm like, man, the first one on my list is definitely Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair's match there. That was
Yeah.
unbelievable. So Charles Robinson had the pleasure to do that one as well. So, I always say that's one match I wish I would have done.
Yeah, because I sit back and look at it, and of all the years of wrestling and being a grown man, it's okay to cry in wrestling shows. My wife makes fun of me for this, but
Right.
I can count the times that I've
Right.
cried at a wrestling show. One,
Right.
I bawled like a baby at the Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels match.
Gotcha.
I did get emotional when the streak ended at WrestleMania.
Right.
I
Right.
was there crying, and I had to play it off and told my friend, "No, it's the beers that's making me do this. It's not the emotion."
Yeah,
Um,
well, I did. I got emotional too at some point when Rock and Hogan's match at the end, seeing Hogan just pass that torch to Rock, And
yeah.
then not too long after that, Rock took that torch. He went to Hollywood. So fucking.
Yeah, and
But
that was what I was gonna ask about, you were there for that key moment, so
yeah,
kind of
right.
walk us through there. I know you've talked about this
Oof.
before, but
Yeah.
walk us through there because I'm sitting here
I mean,
picturing that scene of them looking at each other and doing the turn, and you're there,
yeah.
and
I mean, it was just the face off was phenomenal. The entrance, let's start with the entrance. The entrance was phenomenal. The way the crowd in Toronto reacted, 68,000 people plus in the dome there, and they were so loud. It was just incredible, man. I was just like, holy shit, I couldn't even hear myself think. It was just like, I was just so shocked by the crowd. I was marking out, I was just totally
yeah,
in mark zone right there. So just looking around, the vibe and the energy from everybody all over the place on the entrance. And then when you got to the face off, and it was just, and then the big shove off and the Hulk up and this, it was just like, what the fuck? And I mean, they had to really, they weren't the last match of the night. They had to be, they really had to pop this match through because icon against icon. Hogan looked phenomenal.
mhm,
What he did with WCW and comes back to WWF at the time, and Rock's the fucking top star, and it was just like icon against icon. Rock wasn't such a legend then in my eyes, more than Hogan was. Because growing up with Hogan in the '80s, working for WWF and in the '90s and all that, and so it was just it was phenomenal, man. I mean, I've never experienced even years after that, like you even thought, like you never thought that was like, wow, that would be the top match, one of my matches. It wasn't a high flying match. It was a very technical. There weren't, two high flying guys,
yeah.
big and just going to be a wrestling showdown. And they just knocked it out of the ballpark, man. They really did, Rock and Hogan.
Yeah, and you sit there and look at that, and people still talk about that match.
Right,
They
right,
talk about that's kind of like when you sit back and look at all the WrestleMania moments, that's like a top 5 in every conversation there is.
right, right. I mean, it was just it was amazing, man. I was definitely marking out on certain parts of that match, man. So yeah, and I was in, like, God, I mean, I'm in the business at that point, like 17 years, like, or
Right.
something. So, I mean, it was like, holy shit. I definitely marked out, man. That's for sure.
So you talk about marking out and that being one of them. Is there one that you like that you started to kind of feel you really, really marking out? Besides that one, like really marking out, and you have somebody in your earpiece be like, "Hey, Mike, we gotta go. We gotta go."
No, there was even though that wasn't the last match, they gave him all the time. And they were just going to let that ride, man. I think we had so many minutes, 25 or total 35, 40, maybe something like that. And I think went over, and it just, the energy after that was just, I think there was a girls match and then Triple H and Jericho that night. And like I've always said, before, Jericho always said, I remember him running around 20 years ago going, we shouldn't be the last match. We shouldn't be the last match. There's no way we're going to follow this shit.
Right.
And it was like,
And that was a tough one. That was
yeah.
a
And
tough one to
so, I
pull.
mean, the energy after that match, the crowd was just, you know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it was just phenomenal, man. It's something I've, really it's one of the times I've experienced because I mean, I've been through the Stone Cold, The Rock, and all that other
Mhm.
stuff and heard some amazing crowds throughout the years. But that big of a dome and all that, it was phenomenal, the reactions.
Definitely for sure. And it's gonna be a lot of great reactions when we're at Ric Flair's
Yeah.
last match.
Oh, yeah.
By the
Oh,
way,
yeah.
Ric Flair's lastmatch.com. You can also go to starrcast.com, Starrcast with 2 R's, and you can actually hang out and meet Mike Chioda and get a photo with the WWF Championship belt from WrestleMania 17. That right there is pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be pretty
Getting to
cool.
do that.
I believe I'm on there from like 9 a.m. to 12 noon or something. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty cool holding up that title again. I
Yeah.
haven't held up the title in a little bit.
As you can tell, we're big belt people on this show. Is there like
Right.
a certain belt that you are a big fan of? Like the one that you sit here and think that's the belt that I want to own?
Um, some of the old heavyweight championship belts. I never wanted the replicas. I did have some real titles. They got actually taken by the ex-wife.
Oh.
Long
I
time
figured you would
ago.
have said Conrad bought him or something.
No, I sold him some turnbuckles, some old WrestleMania, like 4 and 5
Oh,
turnbuckles from
nice.
Jersey. Yes, and the old WWF. Sold him one of them. And I had so much stuff for over the years, for 30 some years. And I didn't collect too much, like here and there, but then I started getting autographs and stuff like that. And there's a thing from South Korea. It's behind us. Rick's on it, on the front poster and stuff. I had him sign it, Triple H and a bunch of boys. I started getting autographs out. So like years later,
Yeah.
and collecting a lot of stuff. So, and I got a ton of stuff.
And see, that's the thing is like when you become a wrestling fan and you're in the wrestling world, at the end of the day, you're still a fan.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the fun thing about this show is like we talk wrestling every day. We do wrestling stuff. I still go into these events and we get to hang out backstage and do all this other stuff. I still mark out and I try to keep my composure, be like, oh my God, it's Ric Flair. Oh, what do I do? Do I say, hey, Mr. Rick? Do I say Mr. Flair? Oh, do I say woo? There's so many things like when you sit there, and that's the cool thing about Starrcast. You get to actually go up and meet your favorite wrestlers, and you get to interact with them, and you get to get autographs and photos, and that's the great thing about Starrcast Weekend. Which again, you can buy tickets, starrcast.com, 2R Starrcast. And also again, Ric Flair's lastmatch.com if you want to buy tickets for that.
I believe it's sold out, right?
Do what?
I believe it's sold out.
When I saw there was still a few tickets left
Oh,
available.
were there? Okay.
Maybe when this runs, it's probably going to be sold out. I've talked to several people and they've all started buying tickets. So
right. Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to be exciting. Again, starrcast.com with 2 R's. Get all the details.
Cool.
You can buy tickets. You can buy your meet and greets there. Let me ask this, because as a wrestling fan, you see this a lot. And as we all kind of figured out, when a referee throws up the X, that means somebody's hurt.
Right.
But it seems like now it's kind of now implemented into the storytelling. Like wrestling fans know that the X means, hey, somebody's hurt.
Right.
So is there like maybe a new thing that they're doing, or is it still always, hey, the X means somebody's really hurt?
Man, I hope not, because there's a while that we weren't supposed to fuck around and screw around with that X thing. That X thing when somebody's hurt, you're not supposed to. But I did see one show a while back that they threw up the X. I don't think he was really hurt, but I mean, yeah, that would definitely. I'm sure if they did it and they're doing it once in a blue moon, it might mean something. I don't think they wouldn't do it a lot. They would do it probably a couple times a year or something like that, because they know when they do it, things like that. But when you throw the X up, it should mean, that means they're hurt for the most part. I think maybe if they throw it in the storyline, like I said, it's probably done twice a year, if that.
Yeah. And that's what I kind of configured, because like we've been at a couple shows here recently where they threw up the X and I'm like, bro just got up and walked away after the camera was off of him. So I'm like, is he really hurt? Was this part of the storyline?
Yeah.
And it's fans,
it could have been, it could have been real, but I remember we were told, you don't throw. They didn't want to play around with that for a while,
right?
And just throwing up the X sign or something. If you threw the X sign up, somebody had to be hurt.
Definitely, for sure. Our guest on the show right now, Mike Chioda, and everybody talks about this. You see it all over the place. That infamous spot, Brock Lesnar, Big Show, the exploded ring. Walk me through that night, and I'm sure you've told this story before. Walk me through that night. Was it planned from the get-go, and like how did all that like play out? Because I mean, you can't really practice that first go around, because I'm sure you can't get the ring back together quick enough.
That's correct, right.
So,
no, we did. We had some good stunt guys and everything, and the guy Mark Carpenter that designed the rings and stuff. He designed a thing to explode the ring, so where it just collapses.
Mm-hmm.
Came out so perfect. And basically Michael Hayes, and I remember he was all over me, counting, this is going to be your moment in the ring, because we're going to be shooting you with your expression, so don't fuck this up.
No pressure, right?
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I'm like, all right. I'm like, he's like, yeah, because they're going to take the big bump out of the corner, the ring's going to collapse, and they're going to be selling.
Yeah.
And they're going to be out like a light. And then you're just going to be sitting on your ass, and you just got to try and sell that right. So, there was no way I could have practiced it. I didn't practice it. Like you said, it would take too long to really organize that something up in a day. So, I mean, it worked perfect. I kind of jumped around, fell around a little bit, and boom, and planted on my butt, and just looked around in shock, and the crowd went nuts. And they just, it's the first time it was ever done.
Yeah.
And they said my expressions were phenomenal. So I was like, all right, Mike, great. Yeah. So
And then you hit up The Rock. Hey, do you need somebody else in one of your movies? I got this if you need
yeah,
it.
right. Yeah. I know. I'm still asking. I'm waiting for Rock. I
Hey,
know he called me
maybe
some years ago to do that. God, to do that movie with the wrestler. What was her name? God, Paige.
oh yeah.
And I just had knee surgery like a week prior. I had ACL surgery like 5 years ago
Oh,
or so. I know he calls up and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You call me now. I just get surgery.
well, maybe he can call you up to be a part of Young Rock. That seems to be a good. I mean, that's
Right?
getting
Tell me
crazy.
about it.
I love that show. It
I
is
know.
funny though when you sit here and you watch the guys and you're like, they could have probably got somebody else to play Jeff Jarrett or vice versa or what. You look at it and you're like, I get what they're doing, but hey, let's see something else. But it's a good show. We
Yeah.
did have some fan questions, and our buddy Keith with the mixed tag wanted to know this. This is a great question. What is the hardest part of refereeing that the average fan wouldn't suspect?
Man, it's just you gotta be there for everything as far as know when to start your counts in the corners to give them time to get their stuff in so you don't count too fast, too right away. Um, whether it's a guy that's got somebody in a corner or vice versa, heel babyface. You got to be there and shoulder to shoulder for your counts. Make sure you give the guys cues, commercial breaks coming off the air, going back on the air, finish. Cues are very important. And just work with the talent if they're on the outside. You got to work with them. Just you don't want to count them out when that's not the finish. And then just
Right.
certain things you have to really do. And like as a referee, I've always went to the baby face and I went to the heels, and you always say, hey, like how do you want to work? How do you want to work this out? Like how do you want to work with the referee? I always find out how the baby face wants to work with the referee and the heel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to, more important with the heel because the heel's always trying to cheat, and cheat, steal, and lie, whatever they do.
Yeah.
So, you just got to get everything in organized and in your head, and you just got to see how to work with talent and do your job in the ring. I mean, everything's important as a referee, and you're passing on spots, cues, everything. So, I mean, if some talent says, okay, hey, tell them to do this, you got to find time real quick to get over there and get them that spot to them. And
Right.
there's a lot of important things that referees are involved in a match. So many.
Yeah, and you sit there and think about it, and it's like, a lot of the stuff, like you said, I mean, you work through the matches, but I mean, you got the wrestlers, but you're kind of the ringleader per se.
Yeah, I mean, per se is right because I'm always telling guys, hey, look, I've never worked with you before, but I count, pretty fast sometimes. I'll count faster on a schoolboy real quick, or this, or especially at the false finishes, like I pick up the pace a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So just make sure you watch me and listen, because some guys have their eyes closed when they're sitting there and they're not watching you, or if the crowd's too loud, they don't hear you. Maybe the second count. So I always say, just watch me and listen, bro. And I'll tell them kick, if you want to make it a real false finish, close false finish in 2-3 quarters. And there's a lot of things you got to talk to talent about. There's a ton of things.
Definitely, for sure. Cause I mean, it's a work. Cause I was, as a fan, I didn't realize how much work went into planning out a match until I was actually involved in a match.
Right.
And it's like walking through everything and making sure you're in the right spot, because if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, you completely just ruin the match.
I mean, if you're not there for a certain spot of a bump or something like that, and certain things, like, oh my God, and the bump looks horrible and it looks stupid, that falls on the referee most of the part, most of the time.
Yeah.
If a guy doesn't kick out on a 2.5 and he's, leaving you hanging, that looks like shit.
Right.
So you got to be on the same page with a lot of things.
Definitely, for sure. Our guest on the show right now, Mike Chioda, is here. We're talking about Starrcast. It's Starrcast Week, Starrcast with 2Rs.com. And of course, you can buy a meet and greet package with Mike and get a photo with him and the ring used WWF championship.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, you sit there and think about it. It's like you get to hold the actual belt. You think of who all's held that belt.
Right.
And then you get to Starrcast and you get to hold the belt with one of the most iconic referees growing up that we've all watched on TV.
I appreciate that, brother.
And it's amazing. Speaking about refereeing and you talking about calling the matches and whatnot, how does it play out? And this is from a wrestling fan perspective. Say they're outside doing their thing, you're doing the count out, and you're getting right there at 10, but you know the match isn't over.
Right.
How does that play out? Kind of peeking behind the curtain a little
bit. That's the thing. That's what I was talking about earlier, just a little bit ago, as far as, when they go out on the outside of the ring, you have to work with them. When they're in the corner, you don't go in the corner right away and start your count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like you got to pace your counts out. Plus, you don't start your count right away. You get on them, tell them get out of the corner, let's go, and then you may give them some more time. Then count. As you know, if he's throwing a couple punches, you got to pace your counts to where he might be pulling them out by 5. On the outside, with a count of 10, you have to work with them. And before you start counting your 10, you go through the ropes. You tell them to get back in the ring, get back in the ring. You may hop outside, go back in, then start a count. And you just can make sure you count loud and everything. And sometimes you got to tell the boys, get in the ring, get in the goddamn ring at 8.
Hey, we got this isn't the finish. Let's go.
Yeah. So I mean, it's all communication. It's communication, and try and not to make communication look obvious as well. When you're in the ring or outside the ring or whatever. So, but most of the times when I'm yelling at a wrestler or anything, I'm really giving them cues or spots or something else, or telling them something else, not just yelling at them.
Right, for sure. And speaking of communication, how hard is it? You're sitting there in the match, helping out, calling it, and then you've got the earpiece in, so you've got somebody here and you're trying to pay attention. How hard is that? Because
that is the shit.
I'd be like, what?
Jamie Noble, love him to death, but he's the worst on it, man. He's always in my ear, and then he was always the agent in your ear too. And then you'd have Billy Kidman in your ear with the cues, which is very important to get your cues and your other things. And whatever Billy would say would come from Vince or Hunter. So, and anybody up at the gorilla on that side of the table. So, you sometimes Billy would get hot at Jamie or other agents too, because they're over talking Billy, and Billy's trying to get a word in from what Vince is saying.
Yeah.
So, it's just, sometimes there's quite a few times I've ripped the earpiece out of my ear and just, let's go with this match.
A lot of cooks in the kitchen.
That's it.
Has there ever been a time, and I'm sure there has been, you said you ripped the thing out. Did you just tell the guys, hey, look, they're saying call for this, but let's do this?
I'll sometimes, I would even act like I'm telling them something, and stuff like that. And they'll be like, did you tell him? Did you tell him? I'll be like, yeah, I told him. Yeah, I told him. What do you want me to do? He didn't do it, but I just let him go. And sometimes guys don't want to hear it. Like Cena, I got it, Chioda, I got it. I'm like, all right, I'm just passing shit on,
right.
So, there's a lot of different things. It's some guys just take it. And with the time, I can rip that thing out, and I can, if I I got 8 minutes left, I know in 7 minutes, and I know myself 6 minutes. I'm just so good with the time because I'm just so experienced with it. So even without it, I can really tell when a minute's gone by in the ring.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, again, being in the ring, it's going to be fun for you on Sunday for Ric Flair's last match. I mean, you sit here and think about it. Like, when we were all talking about it, we were like, okay, is Rick going to go in a singles match? Because we saw the training videos. It's like, bro could probably still throw down by himself.
Yeah, I know.
Then you bring in the history with him and Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal coming over here and Andrade. Is it going to be hard not to play favoritisms in this match?
I never played favoritism before. I just call it right down the middle, man. That's it, I just don't look at it as a favoritism. I've worked with Andrade a bunch of times, Jeff Jarrett for years, Rick for years, Jay Lethal. I don't believe I've never done a match with Jay.
Oh, okay.
Working with him, and that'll be the first time, which is awesome for me. And it's just going to be a lot of fun, and I just call it down the middle, man. I don't oversell stuff. But probably Ric Flair's match, I probably will. I mean, when the woos come out and if he says, hey, what time is it on the clock on the wall? I'm going to look. I'm going to look. It's 12 o'clock, Rick.
For sure.
And he's going to nut the guy or do whatever. So we'll see, man. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be very entertaining. You got some of the best in the business and that, and it's going to be an honor to an icon, a legend, Ric Flair. I mean, that's going to be amazing. Like I said, I'm coming down the end of my career, and doing that match is going to be another checklist and something in the book,
And you mentioned checklists, and of course, this is the big checklist.
Yeah,
Is there
bucket
one?
list, checklist.
Yeah, bucket list, checklist,
Right.
scratch it off. Is there what is that one match left besides this one that you want to call?
Man, I would probably say at this point in the career, I'd like to see The Rock come back.
Mhm.
Phenomenal shape he's in,
Oh
what
yeah, I
he's
watched
done
the
in
video of him
Hollywood.
and Kevin Hart doing the tortilla challenge, and I'm like,
Right.
bro.
Yeah, he ain't eating no tortilla. He does eat tortillas and all that other shit too.
Yeah,
You should
I've
see what
watched
his
those videos of
Instagram.
him eating. It's like,
Yeah,
how does that happen?
pancakes and waffles. I'm like, damn, Rock.
Right.
But he works out hard, man, 4 or 5 in the morning, and I mean, he's just phenomenal shape. So with that icon and another legend in business, I'd probably like him. I'd like to do something like him and Roman or him and Brock Lesnar. Roman and Brock Lesnar have been going at it for a while.
Mhm.
That's kind of running its path, I think, and with their storylines.
Yeah.
But I like to see something like Rock and Roman Reigns, man, or Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
With all the years that he's put into this business and everything, and phenomenal wrestler he is in shape. They have something like him and Rock. Hogan's pretty much done too. So I mean, some guys that got the gas in the tank would definitely be Rock and Brock or Rock and Roman Reigns.
I think, and the way everything looks, if you look at it, it looks like we could possibly getting Rock and Roman, possibly if everything plays out. So
Right.
maybe next year, and we're going to put this out in the universe because we have a pretty good track record on the show that everything we put out in the universe, it always
Right.
comes to fruition.
Yeah.
So we're going to put it out in the universe next year. WrestleMania is in Hollywood.
Right.
Rock.
Well, let me throw it out to you. What do you think? Throw it
I
back to
think
you.
I like
What
it.
would you want to think?
I think Rock and Roman are going to happen, and we're going to sit there, and all of a sudden we're going to be like, "Hey, I know that guy in the striped shirt right there. That's motherfucking Mike Chioda."
I hope I get the call, man. So we'll see.
So we're going to put that out in the universe. That's going to happen next year, and we're going
it.
to make that come to fruition.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you.
Well, Mike, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a busy
It's cool.
man, but we're looking forward to Starrcast this weekend. We're looking for
me
you at Ric Flair's last match, and we'll definitely be swinging by to say hi to you at your table.
All right, sounds good, man. Thank you very much for having me on the show, man. I'll see you then.